Hi and welcome to this video log with me, Wayne, from swimmingcyclingrunning.com. Well, this video is brought about by a one-to-one that I had with a gentleman called Richard just a few weeks ago. Now Richard, when he came on poolside, I noticed was wearing a pair of buoyancy pants, and I said to him, "Why are you wearing the buoyancy pants?" He said, "They give me great buoyancy." And there's the problem. You see, unless you have good stroke mechanics already, buoyancy pants don't necessarily bring along with them what you think they're actually going to bring. And I see a lot of triathletes wearing buoyancy pants because they want to lift their back end. Well, to my mind, it may be a lot better curing the problem than actually buying something that gives you a present you actually don't want and effectively can never use. So I sent Richard on a warm-up. We always do a warm-up when I'm doing one-to-ones because I want someone really warm before we start filming them or doing anything else. However, this time, during the warm-up, I actually noticed something. I wanted to do some filming. So here we go. We're going to jump into Richard's warm-up and what I actually saw. So as I said, during the warm-up, I noticed something with Richard's stroke and his positioning in the water. And I wanted to really emphasize this for him. So I very rarely do this during the warm-up. I put the camera in during the warm-up just to start seeing, or to make sure I could show him what he was doing. And you can see here, his legs are really low in the water. If we take a straight line, we can see that really is a poor position where the resistance and the drag is absolutely huge. And that effectively happens all the way down the length. You can see his legs are just drooping down. And he's kicking even further down. But he thinks these shorts, because they're buoyant and they do lift him up, are actually giving him some benefit. Now that's just going to be bad for him. And if he hits a triathlon where he can't use a wetsuit, he's actually going to be in big trouble. Another thing we need to notice about Richard is this stiffness in his body when he swims. Notice the head's moving with the body. There's no independent movement there. It's stuck because his shoulders are really stiff. And then we get to his arms and they're really stiff. He's not moving them freely and independently. The shoulder's not extending down the pool. It's being stuck because his muscles are holding it there. And you can see that as he comes close. As his arm goes in, you can see the muscles working there. And they shouldn't be. That muscle on his shoulder there should be free, and he should be pushing the arm down the pool, but instead it's stuck and it's sticking his upper arm in a position that is not good for him. Happens exactly the same with his arms and his left arm. If you see, his neck is not free. It's stiff because his shoulders are stiff. And you can see as he comes forward, everything moves. You can see the muscles on this arm are really in use, and this is not only destroying his swim stroke, but it's also wasting energy, hugely wasteful of energy. So we've got to change this in Richard. We've got to make him a comfortable swimmer as opposed to a working swimmer. So where Richard thought he was very buoyant and up to the surface, he actually wasn't at all. He was still back end heavy with his feet kicking towards the bottom of the pool, and that's no good for anyone. So we set about trying to correct that, and we spent a long time doing it. So we started working with Richard by helping him kicking on his side, and you can see here he's not totally happy doing it, but we are getting a far better position in the water. And when he puts his head in, he's not happy to actually turn his head so his eyes are effectively pointing down to the bottom of the pool, which is where we would like them. They're pointing off to the side of the pool. But this will happen in time, and his upper body is still incredibly stiff. And because of that stiffness, as he rotates, his head is going to go to the other side of the pool. And his upper body also being stiff doesn't help in the direction he's going. You can see the curve in his back slightly is pulling him in one direction. So effectively he's going to go off in slightly that direction, which is something we don't necessarily want, but we can cope with for the moment. Now here I want you to look at his arm, and his arm is being covered by water. If you see there, his arm is virtually completely submerged in water. And what we're trying to get is we're trying to get him so that he
has that arm virtually out of the water. And you can see after a short while after the breath, that arm is now out of the water. And that's exactly what we want. We want a balanced swimmer. And if his arm's next to his surface, we know that his hips are at the surface, which they clearly weren't in that first swim. And as he rotates, the same thing happens. Arms low down, and then slowly but surely, as he gets happy, see that he's lifted his head to breathe, and therefore the back end has just gone down, which is something we don't want. He gets comfortable again, and the arms out the water. We have a swimmer who's now very close to the surface and is slowly but surely getting used to the fact that if you're on your side, you have huge amounts of time to breathe. Now look at this hip there. It's right up on the surface, exactly where we want it to be. And as he rotates to the other side, his neck's still stiff, but you can see the hip was actually on the surface. I'll show you that again. We'll just take this back a touch. So the hip is actually on the surface there as he's rotating or finishing his rotation. So he hasn't actually moved far from the surface, even when he's rotated from one side to the other. Now that's a good start, but we'll obviously need quite a bit of practice. And he doesn't need these buoyancy pants to actually do that. The buoyancy pants now aren't helping him much at all. Now, time tends to fly when you're enjoying a session and when you're working quite hard. And Richard was here, and we spent virtually an hour just doing the drills for breathing. But now he's swimming, and look at that hip right on the surface, and the next hip on the surface, and he's taking a breath. Now, we've done nothing about the stiffness in his shoulders and neck, but we've got Richard into a far nicer position swimming than he was before. And indeed, he is a better swimmer than he was before. And to a large extent, he doesn't actually need these flotation pants or buoyancy pants like he did when he first came. Now, we have tried to do something with the arms, but he's still very stiff. So he's not quite pushing down, but we are grabbing the water a little better than we were before. And you can see there, he's trying to grab the water as opposed to what he was doing before, which was just pushing down. But as he does that, you can see his head coming out the water and rotating. So we've got work to do, but it's a much better swimmer than when he came just 1 hour ago.
So remember the title of this video, Beware of Strangers Bearing Gifts This Christmas. It's all well and good expecting something to give you a lift, to give you a better position. But unless you can actually adapt to that position yourself, you're probably not doing yourself any good. And just remember that in triathlon, with the water above 24 degrees and for pros 20 degrees, you're not allowed to use a wetsuit. So suddenly you turn up to a triathlon and you think, hey, I'm going to be in a wetsuit, I'm going to be really buoyant on the surface, just like I practice. And suddenly you're not going to be buoyant on the surface because you haven't got the crutch of the wetsuit. And you mustn't use these things like a crutch. So buoyancy pants in the right place are good. For someone who already has good stroke mechanics, they can just give you that lift you want to practice swimming like you would in a wetsuit. But, and it's a big but, you have to have good stroke mechanics first. Otherwise, they might just be fooling you into a false sense of security that you already have cured the problem that you haven't. So my advice, cure the problem, then go on to see if something like buoyancy pants actually helps you in training. And they should never be worn all the time. And I see a lot of triathletes wear these things all the time. Okay, we're approaching Christmas. If you want buoyancy pants, get them. They're not necessarily a bad tool, but first of all, and you can even get Christmas sessions with me or another coach, get your stroke sorted first. And if you get your stroke sorted, you'll end up a good triathlete, whether you wear a wetsuit, buoyancy pants or not. Okay, that's it for this week. Please enjoy your week, enjoy your training, get out if you can, if the weather permits. See you next week, and happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends.